Hello and welcome to Virtual Open Mics Interviews.
Well, I wake up every day with the blues in my head. You know I've got to get to work, got to get out of this bed. This hard luck blues is hot on my trail, setting me up for just another fail. Hard luck blues. Hard luck blues is killing me. My name is Mikie Campro. I'm a singer-songwriter from Dallas, Texas. I'm a multi-instrumentalist. I play guitar, bass, keyboard, and drums. In the studio, I'm pretty much a one-man band. I do all my own songwriting, engineering, mixing, recording, and mastering right here in my own studio. I also perform live as a solo acoustic artist. I have albums out on pretty much all your different platforms. My YouTube channel has many acoustic solo versions of pretty much all the different tunes on my different albums. Music is pretty much my life, and performing live is just something that a musician and a songwriter just can't live without. I love what I do, it's my job, and it's the best. I mean, that's all I can say. I mean, being a musician and a songwriter for me is the best that there is. It's a life that I love. And I just want to say thank you to Bill for inviting me to do this interview, and rock on. The devil came up and put his feet on the ground. Hey, you know that he was here to see the damage he's done. Yeah. Now if you see that red-eyed man walking down the street, hey, it's not someone you're ever gonna wanna meet. Just turn and walk away as fast as you can. Yeah, before he takes your soul right where you stand. He'll be playing that dirty, rotten devil blues, yeah. Wow, how I first got started in music? Wow, that goes back many years. I can remember the first time that I saw the Beatles on the Ed Sullivan Show. I was very young, but even at that very young age, I knew this is what I want to do. This is something I have to do this. So the first thing that happened was Mom went out and bought me a set of drums because that's what I wanted to play. I took lessons, and within that first year or so, had put together a local, very young rock and roll band, and we practiced and we played, and we even had a few gigs at the school and the local church and things like that. And it was just amazing. I mean, I just couldn't get enough. And as time went on, I discovered Bob Dylan, and you know, after watching and listening to him, I was like, I have to play the guitar. I have to learn how to play this guitar. And I did. You know, started taking lessons to learn how to play guitar. And then after that it was bass, and then I wanted to play piano. I mean, but the bottom line is it all started at a very young age, and it all started the first time I saw the Beatles. And at this point in my life, being a multi-instrumentalist, a singer and a songwriter, I look back at that time and I say to myself, thank you, Beatles, because you gave me a life that is so outstanding, and a life that I love so much. And that's pretty much how I got started. You got me down. Damn old blues, damn old blues. You got me down, you got me down. Damn old blues, you run. Damn old blues. Old blues can't keep away from the blues. Damn old blues, you run. Damn old blues, well the blues is coming and it's after you. Wow, people that have inspired me. Well, let's see. There's quite a few, but let's just break it down a little bit. Bob Dylan, of course. When I first came across Dylan playing that acoustic guitar, I was like blown away. After I had been playing the drums for a couple of years, I just had to have an acoustic guitar. I wanted to learn how to play that guitar like Bob Dylan did. Also, he's the one that got me started really wanting to be a songwriter, to start writing my own songs and putting them to music on the guitar. Then, of course, came along Eric Clapton with an electric guitar. I was like, oh my God, I have to get an electric guitar. I need to learn how to play that electric guitar like Eric Clapton does. And then there's people like John Lee Hooker. You know, his style of playing the blues and his style of writing was just awesome to me. B.B. King, the godfather of blues. I mean, his laid-back type of blues and his laid-back type of soloing was just something that was really, really outstanding, and I couldn't get enough of B.B. King for a while. Then, of course, let's not forget Jimi Hendrix. I mean, when I saw Hendrix, I thought he was an alien. I was like, who can do that? I mean, how does he do that? And I watched and I watched, you know, Hendrix, you know, whatever videos or whatever I could find to learn how he was doing this stuff. And then, of course, there's Robert Johnson. I mean, you know, let's not forget Robert. I mean, you know, that style of down-home blues playing was just really something else, and he's really the one that got me into doing alternate tunings and slide guitar. I mean, it was all due to him. He really influenced me. And let's not forget Stevie Ray Vaughan. I mean, when I first saw Stevie Ray Vaughan, I was just like really blown away. You know, his style of playing, that hard-hitting, hard-driving, rock blues type sound, you know, was just something else. I mean, something that I couldn't get enough of Stevie either. I mean, I had to watch his videos, try to learn his songs, try to learn his style of playing. It was just something that was, I could not want to do, let's put it that way. I had to learn how to do that. And then, of course, there was the Beatles. I mean, let's go back to the Beatles. I mean, it all started with them. After I saw the Beatles that at a very young age, I just knew that this is something I have to be able to do. I want to be able to do this. And these are all the people that inspired me to become a multi-instrumentalist to begin with, to be able to play guitar, bass, piano, keyboards, drums. I mean, it all started with them. They really did inspire me, and I'm so thankful that they existed, because I don't think I would be where I am today if it wasn't for them. Harry's doing all right, you know. He's selling drugs down in Congo. Always only hard times for the honest man. You know it's a kick-ass hard time for the honest man. Yeah, it's a kick-ass hard time being the honest man. You know it's a kick-ass hard time for the honest man. Okay, music I create. Well, let's go back to the people that inspired me. From watching and learning from these artists, I eventually wanted to start to duplicate some of their material, cover tunes. So I picked out my favorite artists, I picked out my favorite songs from those artists, and started to learn to cover their material. And eventually, I started to play in several different cover bands during that time. And through that process, what I noticed was, hey, I'm starting to develop my own style. I started to develop my own playing style, my own songwriting style. And how does this happen? Well, look, let's face it. Nobody is born with their own style. It's something that has to be developed. And how do you develop that? From watching, listening, and learning from your favorite artist. And then eventually, you start to duplicate what you're learning from these artists. And in my songwriting today, people may not see it, but I see it. I hear and see a whole lot of my favorite artists, people that inspired me, in everything that I do. My performance, my songwriting, my playing. You know, it all develops over time. And how does that develop? Well, once again, learning, listening, watching, and practicing. It will come. It's just a matter of time. Sometime around midnight, sometime around midnight, the music gets tight. Yeah, the music gets tight. oh man, stage fright. Two very scary words. But let's face it, as a young and upcoming musician, for me, man, I used to get it bad. Before a gig, my hands would sweat, I would sweat, I would have butterflies in my stomach, I would be scared to death. And really, if you stop and think about it, what are you so afraid of? Well, here it comes. You're afraid of making a mistake. You're afraid of missing a chord, forgetting the lyrics, getting distracted and forgetting where you are in a song, screwing up the timing. I mean, these are all things that are running through my mind before I would do my gig. And what happens? Okay, here's what happens. Eventually, you start to figure it out that, okay, the only way I'm going to overcome this stage fright is I have to make sure I know my material really well. And how does that happen? Well, you practice, you rehearse your song set. You pick out your song set. You practice and you rehearse it. You beat it to death until you get to a point to where no matter what happens, if somebody has something going on in the audience, you get distracted by something in the audience, you may forget the chord pattern, but you know what? Your finger memory most likely won't forget. I have gotten out there, and still to today, I'll forget what chord comes next, but you know what? My finger memory never lets me down. It always takes me to the right chord. And it's just something that happens over time. You just need to get it in your head that before you go out and play, you really need to rehearse. You need to beat those songs to death to make sure that no matter what, you're not going to screw it up. You're not going to make a mistake. Because if you have that in your mind going in, most likely you are going to make a mistake. And the bottom line is, if you do make a mistake, so what? 9 out of 10 people in that audience are never going to know you made a mistake. But that also comes from practice, learning how to cover your mistake. If you make a mistake, now I know if I make a mistake, I can cover it up like that. You know, I can go to a different chord. I can add in a couple of extra notes on the solo. Anything that I can do to cover it up. And the next thing is, don't advertise it. You know, don't make a frown like, ugh. Don't make a face like, ugh. You know, just stay normal. Cover it up, let it go. Most people will never even know you made a mistake. And that, my friends, will eliminate any type of stage fright. Today, I don't have any stage fright. I get out there and I do my thing. You know what? If I screw something up, if I make a mistake, I cover it up. I don't advertise it. And guess what? Nobody ever notices.
When the blues comes calling, then you'll know the blues. When the blues comes calling, then you'll know the blues. It's like having nothing left to lose.
Okay, my strongest musical skill. Well, I'd like to say that it's my songwriting. I've spent years and years of writing and learning how to write, and writing thousands of songs, which probably 975 of them ended up in the trash can, but that's just the process. You can't get better at something if you don't continue to work at it. Also, my playing ability, my guitar, my bass, my keyboard, my drum playing, I mean, it's all a matter of practice and time, and I'm very proud of it, and I think that these are pretty much my strong musical skills. Also, you can throw in there all the time spent on learning how to record, engineering, mixing, mastering. I mean, that all comes into play, and you know, and again, I'm really proud at the results that I've developed. You know, and these are just some of my strongest skills. But again, I mean, these are things that happen over time. I mean, it don't just, you know, you don't just pick up a guitar and all of a sudden you have all of these skills. I mean, it just takes a lot of work, a lot of patience, and a lot of practice. So hang in there. I mean, the bottom line is it will come. If you're dedicated and you're inspired, you will develop some very strong skills. I did. I mean, and believe me, I put in many, many hours. I mean, my routine, even still to today, is practicing as many hours a day as I can. And yeah, you can always miss a day here or there, and it probably won't affect you. It won't take you back any time. But the bottom line is, even if you only practice a half hour a day, it's something. I mean, my routine is, man, I'm playing. If I'm not in somebody else's studio working on other people's material, working on my own material, or rehearsing for a performance, I'm working 4 or 5 hours a day. And you know, it's something that I look at and say, well, hey, man, come on, that's my job. You know, that's what I do for a living, and I need to do that. And you can do it too. It's just the way it works. So hang in there. Keep practicing. Those skills will come.
This road has no end. It just goes on and on. You'll find what you need, maybe not what you want. It's a hard road, a hard road you travel on. The ups and the downs, the laughs and the cries, on this hard road you travel on.
Well, let's see. My songwriting process. Well, I really don't have a process. I mean, for me, I could be sitting with my guitar or sitting at the piano and start playing a chord progression, and you know, all of a sudden, you know, I'll think like, wow, you know what, that's got a really nice Americana sound to it. Or, wow, you know what, that's definitely some kind of rock and roll sound. Or, you know, hey, I can turn this into a pretty good little blues type sound. You know, so it all depends on what I'm feeling at the time. You know, and then of course, you know, there's always that question, you know, well, what comes first, the words or the music? You know, I get asked that question all the time. And the bottom line is, look, you can surf the internet and you can find thousands of articles on that topic alone. What comes first, the words or the music? Well, for me, it doesn't work that way. You know, like I just said, I may have a chord progression, you know, on the guitar or the piano, or I might hear somebody say something to me, read a line in a book. You know, here's a good example. I mean, one day I'm rehearsing some songs for my set, and my daughter comes into the room and says, "Oh, come on, Dad, you're always tripping with the blues." Well, I thought that that was such a fantastic line that I took that tripping with the blues and I sat down with it and I started to develop a chord progression, and then eventually started taking that one line and you know, and here's another thing, you know, nobody says you have to start out with a verse. I took that tripping with the blues line and started out with a chorus. I wrote the chorus first, then I went back and started writing the verses, and in the end I came out with what I thought was a pretty good tune. As a matter of fact, it's the title of one of my albums. It's called Trippin' with the Blues. So yeah, I mean, you know, again, I mean, that's just the way I, you know, go at songwriting. I mean, that's my process. You know, another thing is, you know, about rules. I mean, there are no rules. I mean, nobody says that you can't change keys in the song. Nobody says you can't change tempo in a song. I mean, these are all things that you can do to spice up your song. I mean, there's you know, the alternatives are endless. I mean, it's imagination. It's all about what you can imagine in your head, what you can hear in your head, you know, and then it comes out, and you can come up with some really cool stuff. I mean, even learning other people's tunes. I mean, you know, I'm at a point in my career now where I don't need a tab. I mean, I can put the CD in or listen to it on Spotify and say, okay, I know what he's doing, you know, and then I'll just search to get the song lyrics and put my own touch to it. I mean, I never believed in taking a cover tune and doing it exactly the way the artist did it. You know, I always wanted to put my own flair, my own taste to it, you know, and it makes a big difference because you're still incorporating your own style into playing a cover tune, you know. I mean, that's just my way of, you know, writing and my process. It's just what works for me. And again, it's just what I feel at that time when I sit down to play.
I'm tripping with the blues. I'm tripping with the blues. I may be poor in the pocket, but I'm richer in the blues. I may be poor in the pocket, but I'm richer in the blues. I may be poor in the pocket, but I'm richer in the blues.
What do I eat for breakfast? Well, to tell you the truth, I've never been a breakfast person. But when I think back, at one point, breakfast for me, you get up in the morning and first thing you did was have coffee and a cigarette. I mean, that was the way the day started. That was my morning routine. Now, of course, that was a while ago. I mean, I've long since quit smoking, but still my routine in the morning is, first thing is have that cup of coffee. Matter of fact, on my Trippin' with the Blues album, I actually wrote a song called Cigarettes and Coffee. And it all relates back to that time frame in my life when that's what was normal. Get up in the morning, have a cigarette, and have coffee with it. You know, all the musicians that I ran with and hung with at the time, everybody smoked at that time. I mean, today it's different. I mean, we've all learned that that's not a good thing. But at that time frame, it was the way life was. I mean, you know, being a musician, I mean, recording studios were always full of smoke. I mean, practice rehearsals were always full of smoke. And that whole song came to me from the memories of that time. And lo and behold, the song Cigarettes and Coffee came out, which is on my Trippin' with the Blues album. And still till today, I mean, I get up in the morning, first thing I do is I gotta have my coffee to get the day started. It's just my routine. But never, ever have I been a breakfast person. It just didn't appeal to me.
Cigarettes and coffee is the way I start my day. Cigarettes and coffee, there's no better way. But at the end of the day, I'm gonna change my play. Cigarettes and whiskey is the way I end my day. Cigarettes and whiskey is the way I end my day. End my day with cigarettes and whiskey. How I end my day with cigarettes and whiskey. How I end my day.
Okay, making mistakes while you're performing, huh? Well, let's put it this way. Everybody makes mistakes. The difference is the people that make mistakes that are well rehearsed can cover it up, and 9 chances out of 10, nobody in the audience is going to recognize it. I mean, they're not going to know. All right, but how does that happen? From rehearsing, from practicing, from knowing your material. Beat that set song to death. If you're in a band, you need to do it with your parts. Whatever parts you're responsible for playing in that band, on that set, you need to make sure you know them really well, so that when the time comes to get up on that stage, you're not going to make a mistake. And if you do, you need to know how to cover it. And you can cover it very easily by knowing those tunes inside out, from practicing and rehearsing them. For me, as a solo acoustic artist, when I'm in a club, if I make a mistake, well, you know what? Nobody sees it. You know why? Because I'm well rehearsed. In my brain, my mind, I might, oh man, what's the next chord? But you know what happens? Finger memory never fails. And how do you develop that finger memory? Practice. I may forget what chord comes next or what notes come next in the solo, but my fingers are not going to forget because I'm so well rehearsed that they know where to go without me thinking about it. And finger memory, believe it or not, is a real thing. You can Google that and you can read about it. It's a real thing. And it only happens if you're well rehearsed. You know, I've been in recording sessions where, you know, all of a sudden I didn't bend the note high enough to get to the right note I wanted. Okay, so what happens, okay? You stop, you back it up, you punch it in, you go forward and you do it again. Well, when you're performing live, you don't have that ability. So, you really need to have it rehearsed well. If you're going to make that bend, you better make sure you're bending it and getting it right, because there is no going back. And if you do make a mistake, don't advertise it. Don't, all of a sudden, ooh, or ooh, make faces and throw up a red flag saying, hey, look at me, I just made a mistake. These are things that happen through experience and through time and practice. You learn. Don't advertise it. You can cover it up because, again, 9 out of 10 people in the audience are not going to realize you made a mistake, all right? Just the way it is. So, again, practice, beat those songs to death, rehearse, develop that finger memory, and you'll never have to worry about making a mistake, or if you do, having people realize that you made a mistake.
Well, with my hands shaking, I took his pen. Then I looked him right in the eyes, and I began to grin. Well, I said, man, let me get this straight. You give me what I want, and then my soul forever you take. He said, sign right here. Just sign right here. Everything you want. Just sign right here. Well, the sign said Highway 61. It crosses with 49, the Devil's Road. He said, sign right here on this.
My practice routine. Well, when I was working a regular 9-to-5 job for many years and doing my music on the weekends and at night, my practice routine was pretty much whenever I could fit it in, okay? Having a family and having a full-time job, it makes things difficult for you as a musician. So, a lot of times I'd come home at night and just be exhausted and I just couldn't do it. There was just no energy left. On the weekends, pretty much I spent every weekend, every Saturday and Sunday, as many hours as I could in my room practicing either guitar or piano or drums or whatever, for as many hours a day as I could. Now, when I started doing it full time, my practice routine is, again, very, very strict. My routine is, I get up every morning and by 10 o'clock I'm in the studio and I'm either working on my songwriting, practicing piano, practicing guitar, working on my solos, rehearsing my material, and this is easily 4 or 5 hours a day. In between that, I'm working with other people in other studios around town and learning their material and getting ready to do my part for them, whether it's a rhythm guitar part, a piano part, a drum part, a soloing part. It all takes time, and I have to squeeze that in between my own stuff, to make sure I'm up to speed and I'm not going to go into that studio and screw things up. I want to be able to get first take. My whole goal is first take on everything, and of course that doesn't happen all the time, but if I can knock something down in the first or second take, I'm happy with that. I'm thrilled. In my own studio, it's different. Nobody's paying for time, and I can take time and do things over again, and not because I made a mistake, but because I feel that I could have done that a little bit better. I could have put a little bit more feeling into that, or I could have bent that note just a little further. All right, but where does all this come from? How does it all happen? Well, again, it always goes back to the same thing. No matter how you look at it, it always goes back to the same thing. Practice, practice, practice. The more you practice, the better you get. The more you practice, the more confident you get. And when you become confident, you're less likely to make mistakes. So, my best advice is practice. And again, it doesn't matter if you practice a half hour a day. If you don't practice during the week at night and you only practice on the weekend, just put as much time into it as you can. Eventually, you'll start to develop and you'll get to where you want to be. But you got to have patience. I've taught so many students, young students, that they just don't have the patience. And you give them an assignment and they come back the next week and it's like, What did you practice? Well, it hurt my fingers, or, I just can't get it to sound right. Well, these are the normal struggles of anybody that's first learning how to play the guitar. I mean, I can remember I practiced so hard when I was young on that guitar, man, that my blisters bled, where I had to stop playing for a day or two to let my blisters heal and callus up because they were actually bleeding. Today, I don't have that problem anymore. I mean, it's just a matter of time. And you got to have patience. And, again, the main thing is practice. Set up a routine. If you got a full-time job and you can't practice at night because you're exhausted from your day job, well, schedule some time on the weekend. You got a family, you got soccer games, you got other things going on with kids. Try to squeeze some time in for yourself. Make a time slot for yourself. Hey, you know what? I got a little downtime right now. Instead of turning on Netflix, let me go practice my guitar for a half hour or an hour. That's the way you got to look at it. That's the way I did when I was working full time. Now, like I said, if it's a different story. Now I practice for what I'm coming up with to do, whether it's recording in somebody's studio, recording my own songs, rehearsing for a gig. It's all a matter of that. I mean, I know how many hours a day I have to put in, or how much time I have to put in to whatever it is whatever event is coming up for me. So, once again, and I hate to keep harping on this, but it's the way things are. It's the way it is. Practice, practice, practice. Hard working blues. Yeah, I'm hard working every day just to pay my bills. Don't even have enough money to go out and get a cheap thrill. And yeah, there's a light at the end of the tunnel. Could be a freight train carrying the blues. I've got that hard working blues. Wow, what did I do for a living before music? Well, back in the day, as I stated before, I worked in a manufacturing environment, operations management. And if you know anything about operations management in a manufacturing company, it's a very stressful, tiring position. It's a lot of work, a lot of responsibility. And I would come home at the end of the day and I would just be totally brain dead. I mean, I would sit down and turn on the TV and within 5 minutes I'd be asleep. So, my practice time usually went to the weekends, and that's all I had. I was a weekend warrior at the time. Now, as doing in music full time, it's a whole different story. I mean, it's just, it's a job that I love. Not that I didn't like the manufacturing job. I mean, look, we all have to work. It paid the bills. And, it was okay. I mean, there was a lot of good people I worked with. I made a lot of nice acquaintances, some friends. And again, it paid the bills. I mean, it was something that has to be done. But I still managed to squeeze in time for me, for my practice, Sometimes I was able to do a little bit at night, and mostly it was on the weekends. Holidays, vacation time, I always squeezed in the hours to get my practicing in. But, I mean, again, that's just the way it is. I mean, when you're first starting out as a young musician, I mean, you're not making a living out of playing music, that's for sure. I mean, it may come eventually to a lot of hard work and practice and effort, and you may get to that point. I mean, I did, but it took time. So, in the meantime, do the best you can. Squeeze it in whenever you can. We all have to earn a living, and if earning a living means a 9-to-5 job and music on the weekends, hey, you know what? I'm not embarrassed that I was a weekend warrior for a long period of time while I was supporting my family and paying the bills, through time and practice and hard work, I finally got to the point to where I could do this music full time. And, not that I didn't like my manufacturing job. I mean, it was okay, but I love my music job a whole lot better. Every day, I work for a nickel and a dime. That's right, man. Every day, I make 1 nickel and a dime. But I'm buying more whiskey. Hell, I just spent a dime. Hey! What advice do I have for other musicians, for up-and-coming musicians? Well, the bottom line is patience. You've got to have patience. In this music industry today, you've got to have patience. And then you've got to work at your craft. You've got to practice. You've got to rehearse. You've got to learn. You've got to listen. You've got to watch your favorite artists, artists that inspire you. Pay attention to them. What are they doing? How do they do it? Incorporate that into your own style to where you can actually, in the end, develop your own style and your own style of songwriting, your own style of performing. It all comes from the same thing. It all comes from watching, listening, learning, and practicing. I mean, it doesn't come naturally. It's a craft, and you have to develop it. And the only way you can develop it is through hard work and time and patience. I mean, you got to have patience. The music industry is a tough industry. I mean, there's a lot of people out there that do what you want to do or what I do. And the difference is that the ones that put the time in and the ones that put the work in will rise to the top. And eventually, if your dream, if your goal is to be able to do music full time, well then you've got to have that patience. You've got to do the work. You've got to rehearse. You've got to practice. You've got to do it over and over again. Squeeze in as many hours as you can to work on your craft. Eventually, it will come. And if you're lucky, and believe me, it does take a little bit of luck, you will end up with the dream that you've been wanting your whole life. I know I did. I dreamt of being able to do music as a full-time job my whole life. And through that process that I just explained, I managed to achieve that. But believe me when I tell you, it was not easy. It was a lot of work, a lot of hard time of practicing and rehearsing and doing things over and over again and meeting people and watching and learning and listening. But it came, and it can come for you too. All you have to do is have the drive, have the inspiration, and have the patience and the work ethic to make it happen.
It's just a simple song to say I love you. It's just a simple song to say I care. It's just a simple song to say how much you mean to me. It's just a simple song.
What do I want people to get out of my performance? Well, I can sum that up with one word: feelings. I want you to feel something. Whether I'm hitting you with a hard rock tune, I want you to feel the energy in that tune. If I'm hitting you with a ballad, I want you to feel the emotion in that tune. If I'm hitting you with a really sad blues tune, I want you to feel that sadness. But the bottom line is, I want you to feel something. I want you to feel it in your soul. I want you to get goosebumps. I want you to feel it. That's, in my mind, that's what being a performer and a musician is all about. When you get up in front of that audience and you start playing your songs, you want your audience to feel that emotion. You want them to feel that happiness. You want them to feel that energy. I mean, to me, that's my goal, is to make you feel something. So yeah, to sum it up again in one word, what I want you to get out of my performance is feeling, because that's what music is all about. It's about feelings. So every day I feel so lonely. Every day I just sit and play the blues. Yeah, it's got me at the bottom of the barrel. And the bottom of the barrel gets so damn cold. The blues has got me at the bottom of the barrel. The blues has got me at the bottom of the barrel. The blues has got me at the bottom of the barrel. And the bottom of the barrel gets so damn cold. Well, I gotta say that this has been a fun interview. And to sum things up at the end, my message to all you young musicians out there is, if you've got a dream, keep working towards that dream. Don't ever give up. If you're learning an instrument and you find yourself starting to struggle, have patience. It'll come. I mean, with today's technology, my best advice is record yourself playing something, even on your phone. Record yourself playing something. And then 5 or 6 months from now, go back and listen to it again. I guarantee you, if you keep working and you practice, you'll see an improvement. You'll go up in stages. You'll see improvement every time. So, don't ever quit. Don't ever give up on your dream. Keep working at it. Having a dream is a beautiful thing. And feel lucky that you have a dream. That's something you love that you really want to do. So, I really enjoyed this. Bill, it's been cool, man. It's been a lot of fun. And I thank you so much from the bottom of my heart for asking me to do this interview with you. And again, to all you young guys out there, have your dream, work towards it, and don't ever give up.
Check down in the description for links and make sure you are subscribed to Virtual Open Mics to be alerted about new Virtual Open Mics events and interviews.